Thank you everybody for coming back. Hope you all enjoyed your lunch. Jenny was just did this first section, so we have Danny now in this one. If I can just get you to just your attendance, and it's just near this one.
And credit card number.
That's not necessary. Alright, thank you. While Danny's doing that, what I'll do is pass out the handouts for this session, or for the PowerPoints. And as the hand goes down, we'll put it through. Thank you. And then, thank you. I've got one here if you like. Oh, I'll put this out for me. With assessment, I'll put these in here. Extra.
Yeah, there's an extra one.
Oh, there is an extra one?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Pass it back up. Thank you. Swap. Thank you. Have that one there. Okay, so we're coming back to this bit, and we'll be talking about communicate effectively in the security industry. Okay, so again, this session will be going for 45 minutes. It's 3 elements to it, and then at the end we'll just have a little exercise where we'll do report writing and then a little bit more revision. The 3 elements that we are looking at in this session are receive and understand information, communicate with others, and record security information. So the first one that we'll be touching on. And just a reminder, the bathrooms are here if you've forgotten, or if you need to go at any time, it's okay. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Kathy. So what we have, receive and understand information. So as a security guard, you may receive written, spoken, and electronic information relating to anything from client and colleagues to reports and signage. This information needs to be checked against your assignment instructions, such as the use of force and equipment needs. So you will need to ensure these tasks are carried out and all requirements are met. Instructions need to be carefully listened to and clarified with colleagues or your supervisors. Be sure to actively listen to all instructions and obtain all verbal and non-verbal instructions. This ensures a complete understanding of the tasks and the requirements. Prioritize your workload to ensure sufficient time frames are met. Any areas of uncertainty or misunderstandings must be identified and explained regardless of whose fault they are. Any disagreements or instructions should be politely resolved using the appropriate conflict resolution procedures. If there are any areas of your role that you are unsure of, be sure to clarify these with the relevant persons, such as your supervisor. So on the screen we have active listening skills. So how do we do this? We want to observe first, so that these are your non-verbal behaviours. Need to focus. So don't do anything else while listening. So really focus on what somebody's telling you. Acknowledge. So acknowledge the message, even if you don't agree with it. So if you've heard the person, acknowledge that you have understand their point of view, and maybe not throw out yours just yet. You need to have respect and let the speaker finish before you have your point of view, or before you speak up. So the areas that we'll be looking at within this section are assignment instructions. So what are assignment instructions? So they might be assignment objectives, the time frames, backup support or assistance, communication and procedures. So obviously the radios that we have here, procedures, the site instructions. occupation health and safety, the legislations, the use of force, like I said, verbal and non-verbal communication. So what are the objectives and also what are the time frames? We want to receive and understand information. So receiving and understanding information. So what is the information that we might be receiving? It could be a diagram, it could be electronical, could be numerical or statistical. The information could be observed or spoken, could be visual, like in graphics, or written. So they could be also assignment instructions or work tasks. Who may we relate this information to? We may have touched on it in the last session. So who do we want to receive information from?
The person you're working for.
To our clients?
Your supervisor.
Yeah, supervisors.
Co-workers and office services.
Yeah, perfect. Exactly. Yeah. And what kind of information do you think we'll be relaying to one another?
The job.
Yeah.
Tasks.
So maybe reports as well, different messages, whether there's risks or hazards or incidences, whether signage needs to be displayed, or situations or occurrences or unusual events. So all of these are, the information that we want to clearly send to one another. Right, moving on to the next. So communicate with others. So communicate with others. What we'll be doing is verbal communication. So the language you use in verbal communication must be clear, concise, and appropriate to the client, audience, and your role and assessment instructions. Always do your best to be courteous and respectful, and be aware of any cultural or social differences. This can be anything from a person's age, race, or religion, and will vary with different clients or assignments. Always use the appropriate terminology of your workplace. All clients and customers should be greeted appropriately. However, this could vary with different people and different situations. Now, can anybody give me an example of an appropriate interaction and maybe a not appropriate interaction?
Well, the appropriate would be when you're greeting someone courteously and politely, but if you swear at the person, it's obviously not appropriate at the
Yeah. And say I'm working at a security desk and somebody comes in and they are asking for directions. And if I was say maybe I'll greet them and go, "Hey mate, how you going?" No, is that an appropriate way? No? So how would you greet that person in that instance?
Can I help you?
Yeah, perfect. Or how are you doing today? Yeah. How may I direct you? Yeah, perfect. Any other examples? So say you're working with a colleague, and it's a maybe male female colleague, and the male,
Slap your ass.
inappropriate.
Slap your ass.
Very-
Shake your hand. Hi, how you going?
Yeah, that's an example. Any other ones? Maybe you've had experiences in your workplace?
Eye contact is important, so looking at the person when they're speaking to you.
Perfect. So you don't want them still doing a task and you're trying to they're doing the task, not looking at you, vice versa. Yeah, they're not engaged, they're not really taking in that information, so they could make mistakes, could be a misunderstanding somewhere along the lines. It's a good example. Thank you. Alright. So established needs by. So a person needs should be established by effective questioning, listening, summarizing, and assessment skills. So summarising assessment skills. Any information provided to the client should be based on accurate assessment of that client, and a range of options should be presented at all directions, given in clear and sufficient manner. So a way to greet somebody, and they may, so an example might be you're again working in a security desk. There are toilets on site, but they're only for staff members. And you have a young man come in and he's looking for a bathroom, but because it's a security area and you need passes to get past, and especially to use the bathrooms as well, you'll have to refuse. So we can do that in a way that is non-aggressive or confrontational. We don't have to yell at the guy and say, get out of here, mates, go down the street, we don't want you here. We can politely explain to him, look, if you do not have permission to come inside, I do apologise, but you'll have to find a different location. I do know one, and give him options. Give him an option. It could be a petrol station across the street, or a takeaway down the road that will allow for those clients. So give him options. We don't want to upset people, and we want to be courteous to everybody that we have interactions with. Again, it makes our life easier, and it's easier to communicate with that person when you're using appropriate language. Being polite. Okay. So we have communicate. So appropriate communication techniques such as active listening and phone techniques should be used to develop and maintain confidence with others. You should make notes of the details of any advice given according to your assignment instructions. Remember, some instructions may be restricted. Always follow your assignment instructions as to what information is given out. Also record all necessary written notes required by your employer. So, communicating with others. So, what kind of notes do you think you take down? Like, what necessary notes, and where would you put these notes? What would you use? Okay, so we have security notebooks. Maybe you'll be carrying around your duty book. You'd place your notes down in there, or any information, instructions you've been given for that day. Also, you can email these to other employees, or you could receive emails. But when you're writing down the notes, make sure it could be a diary where you're sharing. So you sign off for that day, and you want to leave notes for the person the next day, making sure that you use appropriate language and note points that they will understand. Okay, and leave a contact, leave who's written that note, so they're able to contact you if they have any further questions about what that's relating to. Remember, always dating, signature, and leave a contact if needed. Need be. So, appropriate communication channels. Said equipment should be identified in order to exchange information. This could be direct supervision, organisational networks, and written signage, and may include the use of computers, fax, and two-way radios. So, communicate with others. So, we have to understand that there's diversity. We need to have respect for people, different cultures, demographic. Be open with everybody. Like in this photo, you can see everybody can see one another, and they're all well dressed and seem to be communicating. No aggressive body language. Everybody's standing in a way where they're actively listening to one another. And what are different types of communication channels? I know we've touched on this already, but what are the communication channels that you would use between work colleagues?
Email, phone, your company intranet, face-to-face, radio.
Yeah, perfect. lot there. Thank you. And these are all the examples. So you've got your radios.
Don't even cheat.
Go to hand. Perfect. Alright, so yeah, and you do this through your direct supervisor, organisational networks, like I said, written signage, fax computers. So, moving to the next one. So our last point will be record security information. So here we have information should be organised in a clear, concise and logical manner using databases, notebooks, report sheets or any other appropriate materials. So we've got databases, we've got notebooks, reports, sheets and other materials. Like I said, so you want to make sure that all the documentation is accessible and easy to get to. So if you're not organising while you're on duty, the next person that comes in on shift might not know where to find something, might overlook something that's quite important. If you've written out, you've done a risk assessment or there's been an incident on site and you haven't placed the appropriate materials or documentation in the right place, they may overlook that and may cause an accident because the item hadn't been fixed, or somebody hadn't noticed that and used a piece of equipment and then in the end were injured. So yeah. So relevant legislation. So okay, so on the last point, sorry, this is to allow efficient reference and retrieval. As a security guard, you will deal with many confidential, legal or sensitive documents. These may be required by law to be written in a legible format and kept in a safe place. These documents may also need to be produced on demand to the police or other authorities such as fire departments or simply to your employer. So these people will be the police, other authorities and employers. So where's the safe place? Angie, I know you touched on this earlier with one of your the incident reports. Where do you keep your important documentation?
In the office, in the filing, like in the filing cabinet.
What about on your site? Is it the same place or are there different locations around, like? Yeah.
Well, there is also off-site storage as well, documentation that you can legal documents.
Yeah, just in case for backups and things like that, or the extra storage if you don't have the space at work where you can go and retrieve it. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So ask your supervisor for information about technical and technology and procedures used at your workplace. So this must be completed in accordance with the relevant legislation and legislative requirements. So these include Australian standards and quality assurance and client service standards. So workplace discrimination, so these are some of the different legislations that you might come across. So, making sure you need the signage for people, check IDs if they're under 25. Why do you think it's under 25? Because what is the legal age that we can drink in Australia?
18.
Okay, so why do you think we check people up to 25?
Except they look under 25, they get ID
Just be certain, because you don't know, like, we put it in a larger bracket just in case, okay? Because, the 23, 24 sometimes can look a little bit younger, so it's better to be safe than sorry. But you can actually ask anybody. So even a 30-year-old, sometimes you'll have 30-year-olds that come in that look quite young, or they could be shorter, or again.
Because I'm
Do you?
young.
Yeah.
I do.
And what kind of size?
Not long ago, and I was pregnant, they said, "Can we check your ID?" Okay.
And what locations? Like, are they like?
What was that? I don't even remember. RSL Club or something.
Yeah.
Casino.
And they normally for the membership to see if you're whether you're in this
No.
area.
No, my age. I look
Yeah.
young.
No, of course. No, I agree. Okay. Other legislation might be for privacy. Again, within security, privacy is one of our biggest concerns with our or for our clients. We will be dealing with sensitive information, so schedules. If it's a concert, who's coming, what's the route they'll be getting on the location. If it's large sums of money, you don't want people knowing the location and route because they could be waiting at any point along the track. So confidentiality is probably the biggest thing, and it comes to work health safety as well, because you want to look after yourself, okay, and you want to look after your employees, so you need to be aware that the information that you receive cannot be passed on. If you're taking photos of an event and say you have pieces of jewellery there, you know, and you post that, you don't know who's been able to see that. If you've placed your location on that tweet or on the Instagram post as well, you could potentially create a conflict situation for yourself or one of your team members. Okay, so just be aware how important confidentiality can be. Also, it could lead to you know, the brand having a
Taking
yeah, you don't want to bring any kind of bad publicity to the brand that you're representing, okay? And if that does happen, you know, that can fall badly back onto you, so just, it's better safe than sorry, okay? So just always pass it by your supervisors or your managers, whether or not what information is sensitive, okay? And if you're not sure, it's better just to not say anything and go to your manager and confirm, okay? Workplace discrimination. Why is workplace discrimination legislation, why is that so important?
because it's illegal to discriminate against other people, and your employer and yourself can be held liable if you discriminate against somebody.
And we do really want an open, kind of diverse,
Promote inclusivity.
exactly. And again, the relevant legislation. Now, the fourth continuum is on here too, and now that's important because that, you know, gives you a guideline of what kind of force you can use. Now, you can't use excessive force on a person. All of this will go through court if there is a claim of excessive force. So you want to make sure of your own levels of what you're allowed to use and to protect yourself. Okay, we're here to protect our clients, but also ourselves, but also the general public. Okay, so we don't want to bring harm on anybody else. Number one is, if you can back away from the situation, then you back away, okay? If it's threatening others that you're obviously employed for, then we start going through the force continuum, okay? So just being aware of these legislations. So we'll move on to the next one. Record and note-taking. So what are the important things, well, you can see here, the important things in note-taking. So you want the time of the incident, you want the date. Now, you want the date of when you're writing the report, and you want the date of when the incident occurred. You want to know the location or locations. was the event started at one location and then moved into a different area. So you need to be able to track that and track that with timing at 1400 hours, approximately 1400 hours, and then you'll say another time approximately another location. Never give 100%. Like never say, oh, it was 1400 hours. We use approximate because we're in that area. You can't always be 100%. You're not always looking at your watch when an event's going on. Okay, so as long as it's around that time, legally, that's better for you. So make sure you have your name. Also the witnesses' names, so full names. As much information as you can get from these witnesses. Normally being able to ask them for their ID. Grab their ID, you write down their name, write down the address, and if they can give you their phone number. Also a description, okay, depending on if the witness was involved in this situation or they're there but, we're not sure. Always write down those extra details. ID numbers, like I said, on their ID cards. Also describe things like why were you there? Okay, what were you doing? Were you on patrol? Were you just passing by? Were you off duty? Were you on duty? All of these things are important. How you got there? So were you already on shift? Is that the place that you work at? Or were you driving, doing patrolling and going to a different site and you may have come across, a group of young kids graffitiing on one of the sites that you're patrolling? So, were you driving up? What was the location? Anything suspicious you notice? So the environment, what happened? Okay, anything out of place? Was there a fence? Did it have a few clips up the side for people to sneak through? Or were there crates stacked on top of each other in a way that may be able to be used as an access point or into a building? Again, your name, ID, and your objective. So, what do you think's missing from here? What other points do you think would be good to add to a report?
If the person doesn't give their name, maybe a detail of what the person looks like.
Yeah, perfect. So Caucasian, Asian, you've got those kind of ways of describing people. Height, age, hair, if you have that much. What clothing they're wearing, what kind of build. Did they have an accent? Did you have some kind of accent that you could hear? Any tattoos, any, body piercings, exactly. Anything that you could identify, help you identify a person. Even just the way that they walk, as much detail as you can get, and try to write it down as quickly. And again, where are we putting all this information? In our logbook. Yeah, perfect. And then we're going to transport it into, so we have it in our logbook, in our diary, and then if it was a situation, then we'll transfer it into incident report. Yeah, and then we'd probably, once we've done the incident report, we'd also do a report to either your supervisors, letting them, signing off your daily report. Okay, so is we're doing an exercise now. I'm going to show you, can everybody see this?
Yeah.
What we'll do is I'm going to hand out these. I'm going to go through, I can pass this down please. Perfect. Okay. Now what we'll be doing is now what we'll be looking at is a situation, and I want you guys to be able to take down as much details and notes as you can. So watch it first, and then so nobody's gonna write notes. I want you to guys remember, just remember for me. And if everybody can see this, or I'll pop it up on this. Bit
I
easier.
think it was better where it was.
Yeah.
No, go back.
Yeah, just because everybody can see that though.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So again, remembering what we discussed on the previous slide. What's the incident? Where's the location, or what's involved in the location? Okay. What do the people look like? What's happening? Okay. And after you've taken your notes down, then I want you to summarize it in a report, just a quick report that you'll be giving to your manager. Okay. You all ready? Now it only goes for about 3 minutes. And then you can try to tell me at the end, what do you think is going on within this clip? Okay, everybody ready? Yep. Yeah, right. So where's the security guards? Alright guys.
We're a very small segment.
So, now I'll give you guys.
Save the day.
No, now it's your turn to write down what you observe or what you remember from that incident. Okay, so take the next like 5-10 minutes. We'll see how we go. And just writing down the key points, and then just summarize it for us.
Good. Maybe a few more minutes.
So how much information do you think you got into that report, or did you remember by looking? How well do you think the guys went? Could you remember a lot of detail?
No,
Just the
attacker.
The attacker?
I
You,
don't know what that's.
Yeah.
Tribal colours.
What was the, more traditional farm
and who were they on?
On the victim's right arm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did the attacker have any answers?
The person had China tried and stuff.
Oh, right, you
That's
good. Does anybody remember what the gentleman looked like, the attacker? What was his height, his build?
It was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Six,
He had a
six.
long mohawk.
Pretty, it was balding hair.
Did it
You
take out?
could tell it was balding hair.
Okay.
It was shaved.
Yeah, I know, but it was
But he had a
still bald,
mohawk
yeah.
thing.
It was two bald spots, that's why I shaved it.
And he had a big beard.
Yes.
Mess
You're all
of
making
beard.
a hairstyle.
Or a tight singlet. Like,
Yes,
the tea.
Okay, so big beard. What was he wearing?
A small singlet.
What colour?
Black.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And what do you think was going on?
Where was the security in my
Oh.
Yeah, there was no security, no nothing.
Yeah.
And the airbus just walked away after it all.
I would wear tea.
Do you remember what the van or what the?
Airbus.
Yep. What colour was it?
White with green, yellow,
Yeah,
reflective.
it was like a yellow.
It was a patient transport.
Transport.
An actual ambulance.
Yeah. So it's been perfect. All right, you guys have a lot of that information. Anybody want to share their report? Would anybody feel comfortable to share what they wrote with the report?
Someone puts an ambulance on the one as well.
What's that say?
Yeah, someone puts an ambulance on that.
Well, we're here, obviously, one of our main duties is to observe and report. Okay, so that's what if we feel unsafe about getting involved, our job is to obviously seal the area and protect the people that we can, cordon off that person or that event until the proper authorities arrive. But we're also, our duty is to observe the event and take down as much information as we can. And that then we can pass that on to the authorities and let them do what they can with it. Okay, and be able to track this guy down, or if he's already a known assailant, known suspect. Okay, perfect. So how did you guys all feel doing that? Feeling like you remembered a lot? Yep, perfect. Okay, well we'll go on to, so now we're at the final stages and we'll just do a little bit of review, then I'll just ask. So, receive and understand information. So, what ways do we receive and understand information? How can we do that?
From talking to our colleagues, or phone calls, or email, or text message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are some ways that we can be a good listener?
Eye contact.
Let him himself and say it's for you,
Any other?
Not being on your phone or being distracted by it.
Yeah.
Active listening.
Yeah, active listening. Perfect.
Yeah.
And how do we communicate? What are some communications that we? How do we communicate with our fellow, colleagues? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look interested.
What are some of the like technologies that we might use?
Communicating.
It's like radios.
Yeah,
Right,
two-way
right.
radios. Yeah.
I don't know.
Was that?
Thank you.
Maybe I'm in America, maybe. Okay, so communicating with others. What are some of the challenges or things we need to be aware of when we're communicating with other people?
Not to say something offensive.
Yeah. And how do we know what might be offensive? What do we need to take into account there?
Like racial
Well, I
comments
was
and
going
stuff.
to say, appearance.
Yeah. Different cultures, understanding different languages have different meanings. In some cultures, okay in Australia is, a number, maybe Russian, and I think in Europe, one of the European languages is actually a rude slogan. It might be Spanish actually. So we need to be, we need to be mindful of sometimes our hand actions and what we might find in our culture to be completely, acceptable might not be so acceptable in other nationalities. So a different way of looking at that is in Asian culture you would bow, okay, and different cultures have the different levels and, for who they're addressing. But in Australia and, in Western countries, we shake hands for greetings. So just being aware of those different types of communications. So who else might we communicate with? So we said our colleagues and other people we work with. Let's think a little bit broader now. Who else do we communicate with?
General public.
Yes. Yeah.
The authorities,
Yeah,
police,
police.
ambulance.
Yeah, exactly. And so when we're recording security information, first, what are some of the things that we might record our information in? What are the items we might record in? Logbooks? Yeah.
Entry recorder could put that on camera on the phone. If
Yeah.
you can take that information.
Yeah, and then transfer it. Yeah. And what are the key points? What do we want to remember to put in our logbooks?
Dates, times, where it is, when it happened, how it happened, yes, the description of everything.
And of what else? The people involved, maybe?
Yeah.
What are we taking down for
So,
that?
yeah, detail also what you were doing at the time, how you get there, you patrolling.
ID information.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Beautiful. So we've gone through the key points. Again, if there's any other information that you need, you can go into SLED, and they'll have all the different licensing and enforcement, guidelines for us to follow. And thank you. Is there any questions that you'd want to have? Any feedback? Anything that you'd like clarified? No? All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. I hope you have something to take away and think about. And good luck. Thank you. Thank you.